episode. I want to thank everybody for continuing to like, share, and videos. The out of the good work. I want to shout out my Patreon members, Jeneen, Jeneen Miller, William Rodriguez, uh, um, Jennifer Dax, and Wendy N. Leeds. So thank you so much for being a Patreon. Really appreciate you. And if you wish to the podcast, link in the description. With that being said, just keep on sharing the videos and whatnot. We're making an impact, so let's just keep it up. And without further ado, oh yeah, I want to do a moment of silence for the person still suffering with intrusive thoughts or anything like that. So on the count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. For that, and without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
Okay. I'm Kayla Riley, and wait, what was the other part?
Just like what school you went to and when you went to it.
Okay, I went to 3 Point Center in Utah from 2016 to 2019.
Okay. And did you get transported, or did your parents bring you up there?
Oh no, I got transported.
Okay, walk us through that. What happened that day?
So, well, to start,
First, what led up to you getting sent there? Do you know?
yes. So, to start, it was so my parents. Well, one, I was adopted. So 3 Point Center, you could only be there if you were adopted. Like they only took adopted kids, and so my parents, my adopted parents, ended up getting divorced, and my mom was super abusive, like really, really badly abusive, and I was going through a lot at home, like trying to kill myself a lot, and I think by like age 12, we were on like the 15th attempt, and so I called my dad. It was like around Christmas time, and so I called my dad in 2016. I called my dad, and he was supposed to take me Christmas shopping, and then I wasn't supposed to have a phone, and I had a phone, and my mom ended up finding out about it because I tried to record her hitting me so that like I could show it to CPS because her boyfriend was a cop, so she got she got away with a lot of the stuff she did to me, and like he helped her, so it didn't really help my situation at all. And I told her she made me want to kill myself, and then she like called the cops, and I was going crazy, and the cops came and they took me, and she just smiled, and I was crying in the back of the cop car, and they took me to Grossmont, to the hospital, and put me on a 5150. So, and then when I was at the hospital, the mental hospital, I was there for 4 weeks because I was trying to. My dad was trying to get custody of me. There was an active custody battle going on, and every time that they would tell me that I would be going home, I would tell them that if they sent me to my mom, I would kill myself because I was over it. I was tired of going with my mom. And so eventually they told my mom that I should go to a program. And so I guess my mom looked at a bunch of places. She said she looked in Texas and Utah and all these places. And she decided on the one for adopted kids. But she didn't tell me when I was going. Nobody told me when I was going, what was happening. And then all of a sudden, the one night in the mental hospital, my lights were my lights. I was sleeping. It was the middle of the night. I think because I was sleeping, and all of a sudden I was getting grabbed from the bed and taken out, and so I started screaming and kicking, and then like once like I was outside, I seen the corner. I seen out the corner of my eye. I see my mom standing there smiling, so I was like freaking out, and then I was put in the car, um, and then they started driving us to Utah, and it was 3 male staff and 1 female staff. And then on the way there, I tried jumping out the car, but they had the car on child lock, so that didn't even do anything. And yeah.
Okay. What do you remember about your first few days there?
My first few days, I remember that I thought like it was normal, like I didn't think anything was wrong. Nobody was telling me anything, so I thought it was like an okay place. Like there was a basketball court inside before we moved to the new facility, because there was the old facility and then they opened a new facility and closed the old facility. It turned into a hotel now. And we had a basketball court and like, I thought it was cool. I thought it was like, whatever, I'm away from my mom, so it can't be that bad. But then on like the 3rd day, that's when I realized it was bad, because on the 3rd day, my therapist basically was like, you need to show your true self. Basically, you need to show us why you're here. And I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't want to be here. I'm just here. Like, I don't know the exact reason. Nobody ever told me the exact reason I was there. And so she was like, well, your mom said you're here for suicide attempts, running away, lying, anger issues. And I was like, all these things that she had put. And I was like, okay, but how am I supposed to show my true self if I don't feel like I have to do that here? And she said, my therapist was like, okay, well, we'll make you feel like you have to do those things here. And I was like, what? And so that's when I started realizing that, like, it was not normal. And I think probably my 5th day, one of the staff was like calling me a bitch and saying that I was a hoe and that, like, I was just trying to talk to all the boys. And so I started throwing stuff at her, like, and then I got restrained. And that's when I realized that, like, this wasn't, yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when you got there?
I was 13, and I was there until I was 17.
Okay, and did they handcuff you when you were there? They were transporting you?
Yeah.
Did did they tell you anything about where you were going? Did they talk to you at all?
Not really. They just said that we're going to. They said we're going to a program called 3-Point Center. She said there's going to be a bunch of kids my age, which actually there was not a lot of kids my age. I was one of the youngest ones there. All the girls were already like 17, almost 18, and they were telling me that there were horses and that we would go horseback riding and all this stuff. But when and then I fell asleep because I really didn't know. I've never been to Utah before I went there, and now I'll never go back. So.
Yeah, for sure. Was this a T.T.I school? Was it a religious school, or was it what kind of school? What, like, did it have seminars and like points and levels, or was it religious based?
Not really, neither. No, you know what? It was level based.
It was level based?
Because it was group 1, group 2, group 3, then boarding school if you were good.
Okay, so how would you graduate? What did they expect you to do? What was like the overview of the program?
Basically, to graduate, you had to well, they didn't even say nothing about graduating. Like, when I first got there, they were basically like, you're gonna be here until we think you're ready to go home. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to prove that I should be at home? And they said, you just have to be good. You have to do what we tell you to do. Don't fight back or nothing. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I started doing everything they were telling me to do. Like, I remember specifically, and just because this has affected me until age 18, 19. Basically, since my mom hated my dad so much, right? She told them that he had molested me, and my dad never molested me. And they locked me in a room for 3 days and told me that they wouldn't let me out until I said that. And I sat there for 3 days. Like, I was not going to say it because I already knew, like, where this was going. But after 3 days, and I'm only 13, like, it kind of gets, I didn't know what to do. And so I told them that. And then by the next week, there was a restraining order on my dad. He wasn't allowed to go near me. And, like, I was super close with my dad. So that shit hit. That hurt. And my mom was trying to get him arrested for it. And there was no proof. The case was closed within, like, 30 days. And so, like, I just remember I was trying to do everything they told me to do just so that I could leave. And it was never, there was always something more that they would either make you say that you are, like, it was just always something more. Like, there was no graduating. I think towards the end, like, finally towards the end, like, I didn't get restrained for, like, 6 months probably. And they were always saying that, like, oh, your date's coming up. And I was just like, okay, whatever. But, like, at the end of the day, my mom made the decision because with them, their graduation was, like, once you graduated high school. And I was only in 8th grade when I went there. I left in the middle of 8th grade, so there was no finishing high school there. And my mom, after me being gone for about 4 years, she finally came and got me. And they told her that I was better now, that I would be good, all this stuff. And so I finally went home, but, I mean, being at home wasn't that much better, so.
Yeah. Let's see. So it was more based on, like, they chose when you left. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, like, where, like, I wonder who like, founded that school.
Zane and Norm from Cross Creek.
Okay, so it was a T.T.I school. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, let's see. So what would an average day look like there? What would you do?
We woke up at, like, 6:30, and we had to work out, and then we had to feed the horses. Once we moved, we had to feed the horses. Once we, like, fully moved to the ranch, we'd wake up, we'd have to feed the horses, and then we'd have breakfast around 7:30, and then we'd go to school by 8, and eventually they stopped using the laptops, and they put, like, I guess real teachers. They said they were real teachers, but I don't know if they were real teachers. And so we would do school until about, like, 3, and then sometime, like, in between 8 and 3, we would have a group therapy session. Depending on which group, like, there was at least one group a day, usually 2, I think, if I'm remembering right. And then we'd have dinner around 5. And then we'd have, like, free time from, like, 5 to 7. Well, like, after dinner to 7, like, sometimes they'd take the group outside, or we'd be inside, or we could just do whatever. And then lights out, or bedtime, or whatever. We did medications at 8 p.m., and then after that, you could kind of just go to sleep whenever. You had to do your chores, but...
Okay. How was the food there? Was it shitty? Was it bearable? Was it good? Was there some shit that was good?
There was, like... Okay, I would say at the old facility that turned into the hotel, the food was horrible. All the food was expired. I got super sick eventually. Like, I was, like, throwing up really, really bad for, like, 2 days. And I kept telling them I need to go to the hospital because I thought I had food poisoning. And they wouldn't take me. And I was like, bro, I've been throwing up blood. Like, at that point, I was throwing up blood. And so I was trying to tell them, and, like, they could see that I was actively throwing up blood. And finally, after, like, a week of, like, throwing up really bad, and, like, I looked horrible. Like, I looked like I was about to, like, die. And eventually they took me to the hospital, and I found out that it was food poisoning, but whatever it was, it like cut something in my stomach. I don't know. It was really bad. It was not bearable at the old facility. But then that lunch lady ended up getting fired, and so we got a new one from England that was one of the staff's mom, and she cooked really good. The food was still expired, but she at least like added flavor to make it so you couldn't taste the expiredness. Um, so I mean, it was bearable, I guess, towards the end.
Okay. And you were saying that you were at an older facility and then a newer facility. What happened with that?
Okay, so yeah, so like 6 months in from when I got there. So at first they were in, I think it's Laverkin,
Okay.
if I'm remembering. I'm not from Utah, so I don't really know the
So
streets.
close to Cross Creek,
It was,
right?
yeah, there was.
Or wait, no. No, okay, never mind. I don't think it's close to Cross Creek, but maybe I'm mistaken because I think Cross Creek was in Nevada. If I'm might be getting that wrong, but
It wasn't where, I know Cross Creek was in Utah, but it was closer towards, I think, Diamond Ranch, because I think we used to pass it when we would go to Sand Hollow, like the old Cross Creek. But it was by, I don't really know, but
was it a smaller town?
no, the new facility was out in the middle of nowhere, and the old facility was like in the middle of everything, kind of.
Okay. I just heard La Virgin before. I'm sure that I've interviewed somebody with that in it. Okay, so continue. Sorry.
No, and then so they ended up moving us to the ranch so that we could basically be with the horses 24/7. And so I don't really know why they did that. I think something had happened where they had to get out of the original facility that we were in, because all of a sudden, like, they were just moving everybody, and like they moved us group by group. So some people got to the new facility, which was the ranch, like sooner than some of us, and it was really weird, actually, just to like transport us all to somewhere else. And it was the middle, like literally middle of nowhere. Nobody could run away. And I think that was why they had done it, because so many people had ran and like were gone for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like the boys were really good at somehow running and being gone for weeks until they'd come back. So I think that's honestly why they did it, because if you ran from where we were now, it's the middle of nowhere. You would be running forever to just get out of the dirt.
Yeah, that's a very similar theme with a lot of these schools. How did they transport you? Like, how did that look? Like, I just imagine kind of chaos if you're trying to transport a whole facility. So how did they like keep all the kids like for the most part together? Like, did they transport you on buses? Like, what was the?
We had the vans, the 9-seater vans, the white ones that look like kidnapper vans. Well, I call them kidnapper vans. But so we had those, and we had like 3 of them. So there were 6 groups in boarding school. There were 3 groups, girl groups, and 3 boy groups, and boarding school. Boarding school was basically, if you did good, you got to go there, and it was more freedom. I got to boarding school eventually, and it was stupid. But yeah, we used the white vans, and they would kind of just have one staff in the front and one staff in the back to make sure nobody could go nowhere.
Okay, about how many people were on the facility when you first got there? If you had to make an estimate.
Shoot, when I first got there,
And then also when you left too, because I want to see the comparison if you can remember.
I would say it was probably less full when I first got there. It was still 3 groups in boarding school, but they didn't clump everyone together. So I didn't even know who everybody was at that point, because it was separated pretty good, you know? So I would say it was more structured and organized, and probably less people, I'm assuming, when I first got there. And then when I left, it was packed. It was a lot. There was like 3 people per room. sometimes. Like, they move someone to the living room so that we can make room for a new person. I don't know why a bunch of people were going there at that time. It was bad. It was really sad. I would try to tell people when they got there, but like nobody liked to tell anybody for some reason. I don't know why nobody tried to warn anybody. I tried to warn this one girl that came in. I ended up being super close friends with her, but I tried warning her. I was like, dude, call your parents before you get stuck here. She was like, what are you talking about? I said, I've been here since I was 13, and they said that you'll leave within a year and a half, and you don't. And then she started crying, and I got in trouble.
Damn. Okay. So, so like, what would you say, like 150, like 300?
More like 150 when I left.
Okay. Just want to, like, an estimate. How big was this facility? Like the first facility you were at, like how big was that in comparison to the new facility? Like, was it?
The old facility was it was like big, but it was small. It's like the hallways were long, so like that part, like it was big and like it went around pretty well. The gym it had a gym and it had a courtyard outside, and then it had another area for like lunch and stuff. I mean, it's turned into a hotel now, so it had to not been too small, not too big.
Okay. Was it just a bunch of different houses? Because I remember at Spring Creek we had a bunch of different like log cabins, and then like some bigger buildings. We had like a cafeteria building. Was there just a bunch of buildings, or was it like located in one central building and then everybody was in there?
Oh no, it was like one building.
It was one building? Okay, interesting.
But the new facility was different buildings. There was the girls' building, the cafeteria, and the school, and the therapist office, and then the boys' building, and then the office, like where Thane and Norm would be, all the way down by the lake, and then there was the boarding school houses. So that was the difference with boarding school. You basically got your own house. And like, I mean, you still had roommates, but that's the part where it was like, it was a little more freedom. But I got kicked out of boarding school. But so then boarding school, you was your own houses, and then there was horses on some of this area, and then they opened like Mustang Alley and took in a bunch of wild Mustangs. It was absolutely crazy. And like, even if you were scared of horses, like I'm terrified of horses because when I was actually younger, before I even went there, my sister had a horse and it ran me over and I got really like injured. And so I didn't like working with the horses, but they forced me, so it was just miserable. And then they tried to get me to take a Mustang. I said, I don't want no Mustang, all crazy. And there was a lake and we swam in it and it made a bunch of us super sick. And we didn't know what was in it or what was wrong with it, but they still let us swim in it. So we just kind of swam in it to feel like kids, I guess. But yeah, the old facility was huge. I mean, the new facility was huge.
Okay. What role did the horse? First of all, I want to say that's really unfortunate that you had that experience, because actually horses can be healing. Actually, like they can be beneficial for like mental health and stuff. I actually have a friend who owns a horse ranch, and she does that. She helps people like they're going through crisis and stuff.
Like equine therapy.
Yeah. So
that's
like
what it was supposed to be like, but their horses were not safe. Their horses were not like trained. There was no training. They expected us to do all the training. So I think if the horses had training and maybe like it was like put together better, instead of just throwing me on a horse that I ended up getting kicked off of, like it probably would have been better.
Yeah. Did you guys get to ride the horses, or like what role did they put? Like, did you just feed them or like take care of it? Like what?
We fed them and we took care of them. One of them got like injured because he tried to jump over the fence and like I guess tried to run away, but he ended up slicing his leg almost off. And so we had to take care of that. Instead of just putting him out of his misery, they made us take care of his injured leg, and he ended up dying anyways after like 6 months of us doing treatments on him. And we would get to ride them. I think within my first week, actually, like they drove us up to the ranch to feed them, and then they said, okay, we're going riding today. But then they expected us to do bareback. Like, they didn't have no saddles or nothing. And they asked me, they were like, have you ever ridden a horse before? I was like, yeah, I mean, I've ridden horses, just whatever. I don't like riding horses at all, really. But I'm kind of scared of everything. So that's what I told them. And basically, they were like, well, since you've ridden horses before, we'll put you on bareback. Like, basically, the people that have ridden horses before, they put bareback because they don't have enough saddles. And then they put saddles on the ones that really haven't. So I had to ride this horse bareback within my first week. And I remember that it was going crazy. Like, it did not want to be ridden. And I was like, yo, I don't really want to ride this horse. It's kind of like acting like it doesn't want to be ridden. And like, you know, where you can tell when horses don't want to be ridden. So I told them that, and they still made me ride it. And I ended up getting kicked off, and it was really bad. And like, they just left me on the ground, and they continued to ride the horses. And I just stayed there until they came back and got me.
Damn. I'm sorry you had that experience. Did they like take care of the horses, or were they like fucking like were they like saying they were taking care? Like, were they actually like well taken care of? Do you think?
No.
No. Okay. So it
was sad.
Abuse. Okay. That's kind of what I thought. What about medications? Did they take you off all your medications when you went there? Were you on medications before you went there, or did they load people up with prescriptions? Because they take people off or load them up. Is what usually happens.
When I got there, I was only on methylphenidate for my ADHD. I was on the highest dosage that you could be on. Kind of messed me up, but whatever. I've been on it since I was 5, so it was like whatever. And then they decided, and I was super skinny because of my methylphenidate, and I had anorexia, so I was super skinny. I loved it. I was at the, you know, and then they put me on all types of medications, Abilify, Seroquel, like all types of medications that I did not need at all. Maybe I needed one depression medication. I've had depression my whole life. That's just because of the way my mom treated me. That's how it happened. But they were just putting me on all types of these medicines. And my dad told them that he didn't want me on medications, and that was when there was still shared custody. He was trying to tell them he didn't want me there. Like, my dad, once before they did that to him. Oh, come back over. You're okay. Here, this is your package. Once like my dad got the restraining order, once they put it on him, well, he basically still tried to come and see me. He knew, he had already known that it was bad. He somehow had an inkling, and he was trying. He was going out to Utah every weekend from San Diego to try and find me, because he knew that we went on outings. Well, he thought we went on outings, and so he was trying to come and save me. And I didn't know that until after I got out. After I turned 18, I started talking to him. Well, I would say like right before I turned 18, but so it was just like that. He told me, he was like, I knew they put you on medications because all the pictures I was seeing, like, you just looked like a zombie. You just looked over it. Like, there was no like facial expression, emotional, like, I was just emotionally disconnected at that point from like anything.
Yeah, that's usually what they do with people, or they take them off their meds so they start withdrawing. Let's see. So you did feel like a zombie, yeah? You're there. Okay. You were there 4 years.
Just about, yeah.
Okay. What was the hardest part about being there for you? And how did you deal with it?
I think the hardest part was that I was sexually assaulted by the staff multiple times, and I actually think that I got pregnant because I missed my period, and like it didn't come back for like, it was just gone, and I was getting fat, and I was very confused because I was only 14 when this happened. And so basically I told them one day, I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And they were like, well, you can't be pregnant. And I was like, what do you mean I can't be pregnant? They were like, you're too young. And then they asked me, like, if I was sexually active before I went there. And I was like, no, I wasn't. Well, like, I was, but not like that. Like, I was young. I was only 13. I wasn't like that. And so basically they told me that there was no way I could be pregnant. And they were like, why do you think you're pregnant? And I was like, I haven't gotten my period. And that's what I was always told, is when you're pregnant. And basically, because I had already told Thane what had happened to me, what they did to me, what they were actively doing to me. And he basically told me, well, if you behaved, it wouldn't happen, you wouldn't get put in isolation. They would do it anytime I was in isolation. And and then I told Thane what had happened, and that's what he told me, that it wouldn't happen if I was better. And so Thane told them, he said, you need to do a pregnancy test for her, because he knew what had happened. And so they did one, and they told me that it was positive. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, that means you have to have a baby. And I was like, well, I don't want a baby. I'm only 14. Like, what the fuck? So basically, they forced me to have this child at 14, and then they, like, got rid of it. And I don't know, like, if it was adopted or, like, what happened to it.
It was taken from you at birth?
Yeah, like, they just took the baby. The baby was gone. I don't really even know. Like, I think it was a boy, but I was so out of it that, like, I don't even really, like, fully remember what had happened. Just because I just remember one night I was in a lot of pain. I told them, they already knew I was pregnant, and so I told them, I was like, look, I think something's wrong with the baby or something. And, like, by that time, I think, like, mother instincts kicked in, even though I was still young as fuck. But I told them that I thought I was going into labor or something, and then all this stuff was happening, and then I guess my water broke. And so they took me to the hospital. They drove me in the fucking van instead of calling an ambulance. And I was, like, bleeding at that point. Like, it was really bad. I was super out of it. And by the time I got there to the hospital, they rushed me. They took me because I was bleeding so much, and they just did a C-section. At 14, a C-section. And it was very traumatizing. They didn't put me under or anything. I was just wide awake, and they were just doing this thing and taking this baby out of me. And then they showed me the baby, and then I never saw the baby again. It was really weird.
Yeah, that is very, very weird, and it's very cultish too. That's a very like thing to do. Like, let's see. I wouldn't have even been surprised if they had tried to make you have, like, a home birth or some crazy shit, or, like, at the program. Like, I wouldn't.
They were going to. They wanted me to, but I told them, if you guys try to do this shit to me, because I had already had a lot of sexual assault trauma, because my mom was trafficking me, and my mom was letting these old men that were doing this stuff to me, basically, and they were getting me pregnant a lot, and she was doing home abortions, and so that she wouldn't get caught. And then her boyfriend's a cop, he knew about it, so it was just like, anytime I would tell anyone, nobody would believe me, because, oh no, your mom's boyfriend's a cop, no, that's exactly why she's getting away with it. So when they were talking about, because they didn't want the hospital, they didn't want to take me to the hospital, because they didn't want them to know that I got pregnant there. Because why am I getting pregnant there at 14? And all the kids are minors, but we're not allowed to see the guys. We weren't allowed to talk to them. There was no way I was getting pregnant from one of them. So why is a 14-year-old pregnant from a adult, not a minor? So they didn't want to take me to the hospital. But they ended up doing it because I was bleeding. I was bleeding so bad that, like, they thought I was going to bleed out. And the staff ended up not listening to Thane and taking me to the hospital, because they called him, and he was like, no, I'm on my way right now. Just keep her there. Like, I was in his own room. Nobody knew where I was. And I'm screaming because I didn't know what was happening. And basically, they just didn't listen to Thane, because I think they thought I was going to die, and then that would look really bad on them. So as long as they could keep the fact that I had a child away from my parents, including my mom. My mom didn't even know. They kept it away from everybody, and they even kept it from me. I mean, they didn't fully, like, they told me I was pregnant, but they didn't tell me nothing to do. They didn't let me take no prenatals or nothing. And I have 2 kids now that, like, I have, and it was a better experience. And, like, I do wish that, like, I could find that child that I had when I was 14, because, like, I want to know what happened to it. But
what do you think happened? Like, if you had to take a guess, do you think it's alive?
I don't know. Probably not, to be honest. I mean, no, but it was. I think if I would have done the home birth that they wanted me to do, I think it would probably be dead. But then I was also thinking, like, because they did the C-section and they took him, I was thinking maybe, like, because now that I had kids and I know how having kids works, because my son was in the NICU when I had him, so I was thinking, like, maybe this child was in the NICU and maybe he was able to make it out. You know, maybe he has a good life. I like to think that he has a good life, or it has a good life, or whatever. But I mean, he would be like 6 now. So if he was alive, I mean, if he is, hopefully, like, he got adopted by, like, a good family, not like a family like mine, and hopefully he's not dead. I mean,
wait, so you weren't adopted, right?
I was adopted.
Okay, so okay, so who was trafficking you? Was that your real mom?
No, the mom that adopted me.
Okay, so how did CPS not get contacted?
Oh, they did. Me and my dad were calling CPS every week. Every single week we were calling them. I was actively going to the doctors because, like, I was sore. Like, my dad didn't know what was happening to me because all of a sudden, like, I was just getting sick. Like, I just looked sick. Like, I looked, like, really bad, actually. And I never actually thought about that because I guess I thought I looked normal, but my mom was giving me drugs so that I would do what she needed me to do. And my doctor drug tested me, and so basically they were like, oh, well, why are you popping up for cocaine at 10 years old? And my mom was like, go ahead, tell them what you did. I was like, what are you talking about? I said, my mom gave it to me. And they were like, no, she wouldn't do that because she didn't do that to the other kids. I wasn't her real child. So I think she just didn't care what happened to me. And so they were like, no, your mom's not like that. Like, how did you get it? I was like, bro, I didn't just take it on my own. I'm 10 years old. I don't know what cocaine is. Like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't understand why people weren't, like, listening to me. Nobody listened to me. We were calling CPS. Like, my friends' parents from school were calling CPS because, like, they wouldn't even let their kids come. Like, I had a lot of friends, but their parents wouldn't let them come over because they knew what my mom, like, I was going to school with bruises, and the school was calling CPS, but I just think it's because her boyfriend was a cop. I honestly think that they were just getting away with what they were doing, and, like, it was really, it was a lot. My childhood was really fucked up. And then, like, when I turned 18, I left that day. She kicked me out, whatever. I didn't care that she kicked me out. And then I was homeless since then, since the day she kicked me out. And I would stay with my dad here and there, but he didn't, like, fully want me because I ended up being on drugs because I had just done it for so long that was really all I've known. My mom was giving it to me, so it made it easy for me. And so I basically ended up being a drug addict, and so my dad didn't really want me around. And I just got, and then I was in abusive relationships, just abusive, after I turned 18, because they were supposed to teach us, about, like, healthy relationships and stuff, but I didn't learn nothing. I didn't learn nothing about no healthy relationship. And I think it's because, I mean, they would hit us around, or, like, they would restrain us, and so I thought that was normal. Like, And so I actually ended up dating one of the guys from there, like once I got out. But I was 17 and he was 19 at that point. Um, and he was super abusive. And I didn't try to blame him because I was like, the program probably made him that way. You know, like that's what I was thinking. And I thought that I could save him or whatever. Like, you know, I think I'm okay, so I can make him okay. I wasn't okay. I was in denial that I was not okay. And he ended up almost killing me. And so I finally left him. Um, and then I didn't date nobody for a while because I was scared after that. And then I met this guy on Snapchat and started talking to him, and I moved in with him, and I had a kid with him. And then he was also super abusive, so I ended up leaving him for my child's safety. And then now I'm probably the healthiest relationship that I've been in my entire life, and we've been together for 2 years, and we just had our daughter. So it's been, and I did lose custody of my son because of the drugs and everything, and like it's been hard for me, but he's with my dad, and I get visits and everything, so like that's been okay. But I did feel like, I think at first I tried getting a relationship back with my mom because I stopped talking to her, but within like 4 months of turning 18, I was already pregnant, and so I tried to have a relationship with her because I knew nothing about being a mom because nobody taught me my entire life how to be a mom. So I was trying to be in a relationship with her. I invited her to my baby shower, and that's when I stopped talking to her because I also invited my dad to the baby shower, and the restraining order was still on my dad, and I was a protectant on the restraining order. I didn't know that I could get it removed off of myself. Well, anyways, my mom ended up calling the cops, and my dad got arrested at my baby shower, so I stopped talking to her completely that day. But yeah.
Okay, I wonder if your mom tried to fucking say that your dad molested you or whatever because he wanted to get you out of the program.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. Did you ever hear or see any other staff sexually, or the whole sexual abuse thing? Was it just one person or was it several people?
One time it was a group, and I couldn't like fully see. They were like keeping it in the dark. Like they would have it dark in the room so that I couldn't see who was doing what. But I remember the very first time it happened was I was in isolation because I had punched one of the girls in the face because she had said something, and I got mad, and so I punched her in the face. And then they restrained me and took me into isolation because Thane said that was my last strike. I'd already hit a couple people, and so he was over it. And so I was like, whatever. So they took me into isolation, and they always had male staff for some reason with me when it should have very much been female staff. I was very small. I was like 70 pounds when I was at TBC. Like, there was no need for a male staff on me. Like, I may fight, but I can't fight off of a grown woman. And so, the first night in there, it was Wyatt. I forget his last name, but his name was Wyatt. He was watching me, and then two of the other. A lot of them were family. A lot of them were like family or friends. They already knew each other. So his friends came, and one of his names was Hunter. They were like best friends. Wyatt and Hunter were like best friends. So
did they both work there, or did he just bring friends to the facility?
No, they both worked there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there was another one. What's his name? He had a dog. Chantry. His name was Chantry, and he was related to Thane or Nor. He was related to somebody, and so then the lights went out, and I was just laying there. I didn't think nothing of it. I was just chilling, and I finally had started drifting off into sleep, and so once I was asleep, then all of a sudden I was being awakened again by like pain. Like it was just straight pain, and I was like, "What the fuck?" So I started screaming, and they covered my mouth. One of them covered my mouth, and then I just felt a bunch of hands on me, and then whatever happened. And it was very traumatizing. I've actually never told the full story, like how many times it's happened. Like, it was crazy. And I think, like, I know it happened to one of the other girls because she, for some reason, they listened to her and didn't tell her that if she wasn't bad, that it wouldn't have happened to her. Because I guess so. They have, like, bad kids, and then they had good kids that they would do favoritism with. She was one of the ones that they did favoritism with because she really, all she did was self-harm. She wasn't aggressive. She was quiet. Like, she only self-harmed. But I remember one night, because so this guy, one of the staff, his name was Brian, he would give her his flannel a lot, like if she was cold, and she would take it, and then he raped her, and then she wasn't gonna say nothing until he had started giving me his sweatshirt, and then she got scared that he was gonna do the same thing that he did to her, which nobody knew what had been going on at that point with me and them doing it, but she had told Thane that it had happened, and Thane took her to the youth, the Justice for Youth Centers, or whatever, I think that's what it was called, Justice for Youth. That's where they took me to when I said that my dad molested me, and all this stuff, and so they helped her out, but when it came to, like, the bad kids that it was happening to, they didn't do nothing about it.
That's crazy. Okay, so I was too for my first year there. I was getting removed like every day. Let's see. So as far as you know, it only happened to one other girl. What about boys? Did you ever hear anything about any sexual abuse on the boys' side? Like,
I think there was, because, okay, so we would see the boys, and, like, at first we were allowed to, like, write notes to them, like, it was fun, but I guess that was our form of entertainment, and, sorry, my child's doing motorboat, but the boys were, they were crazy. I would say the boys were definitely, like, some of them were really actually insane, but I think also they were made like that because they'd been in programs for a long time. Like, I don't think it just happened. I don't think they were just like that. There's no way. And it was bad. And I had heard that the reason that this 14-year-old, he stabbed one of the staff with a pen, so it, like, penetrated blood. Like, it was awesome because, well, I say it was awesome. He ended up going to juvie for it, but we were told that he did that because he was trying to rape him, and he basically was a big kid. He was huge. You couldn't tell he was 14. He looked 17. So we had heard that happen, and I mean, we had heard, but we couldn't know for sure, you know? So, yeah.
Okay. What about student on student? Any sexual stuff there?
Definitely.
Definitely? Okay.
I would say, yeah, a lot of the girls, we definitely did stuff. But I think we did it, like, well, like, sometimes,
was it consensual, or was it?
Okay, so sometimes it was consensual, I would say that. But then other times the staff would watch us, and it was really weird because I remember they made me do it with one of the girls, and because I didn't know if I was bi yet or if I was straight. I was still learning what everything was. I definitely learned that I was bi, and it was funny because the first time it was consensual, and then they had found out that we did it, and so they made us do it again so that they could watch, and then we got in trouble. Like, it was weird.
What was it? Female staff or male staff?
Male staff.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Interesting.
And they had me. I was 14 at the time, the first time, with the girl, and the girl was 17. Like, we didn't know what to do because, like, she thought it was weird because I was only 14. And, which, yeah, that's kind of wrong to do to her. But then they ended up trying to tell the therapist that I raped her. And I was like, how could, first of all, she was a super tall person. I'm really short. I'm only 4'11", so I was probably like 4'9" when I was there, because I was still growing, and so I was really small. Like there was no possible way that I could have done that. And I was like, if anything, like also the age difference, like so it was just all out of whack there.
Okay. They didn't ever try and record it, right? They didn't, like, did you know of, like, recording and shit like that?
There were cameras everywhere.
See, so that's what I'm wondering, yeah.
So everything was recorded. It's just, I tried, I was going to go back there a couple months ago. I was going to go back because I keep asking, emailing, calling for my records, and they won't give them to me. So I just want to go up there.
Your school records?
Yeah, because I needed my school records because I never finished 8th grade. So every time I try to go, like, I was able to get into college, thankfully, and, like, I was able to get into high school. But, like, with high school, when I got back to California credits and Utah credits are completely different. So I was a junior in a bunch of freshman classes because I had to make up everything to even graduate on time. And somehow I did it, and I was surprised. I graduated like 8 months pregnant, and it was a whole thing, and it was really, like, I was proud of myself because I didn't even think I was going to graduate because of how much I had to make up. And they almost didn't even let me go to, like, a real high school. Like, they made me go to, like, the high school for the bad kids. I forget what they're called. Continuation school. They made me go to continuation to see how I would react to how I would, like, be, basically, if I was bad or not. And they did that for summer. So I made up classes in summer so that I could go to a real high school. And they let me go to a real high school, and I was on, like, a one-strike thing at that school. I ended up punching this kid in the face because he said something racist to my best friend. But the school knew everything that he had been doing to me. So basically, when I punched him, they were the teacher that was there. It was in PE. He wasn't even gonna tell nobody. But I, like, went up to him, like, freaking out, like, I didn't mean to punch him. I'm sorry. He was like, oh, now that you said something, I have to send you to the office. And I was like, fuck. And so he sent me to the office, and he had told them that he didn't want me to get kicked out or nothing. They didn't want me kicked out. My mom, the guy's parents came in while the school was talking to my mom and everything, and they were like, he was younger than me. He was only 15. I was 17, and so basically his parents wanted to press charges on me, and my mom was like, let them. Basically, let them. And so they called the cops while I was there and got me arrested in front of the entire school. So I got taken to juvie that day, and then I switched schools to Granite Hills, and nobody knew what happened. I didn't tell nobody. And then COVID happened, so I didn't even really get to go to school.
Okay. So you tried to go up to get your records, and then you were saying about the cameras. What were you going to say about the cameras?
Oh, yeah. So I was going to ask them for the video footage. I wanted to ask them for video footage of my time there. And they basically told me they didn't have them no more, that they don't save it for that long. And I said, well, I need them. And they were like, they basically asked me for what? Because I've been in talks with lawyers and stuff trying to figure out how I can sue them for basically emotional and physical, because, like, I just got a job, and, like, it's hard to work, it's hard to do anything. My wrist, my wrist gets hit a certain way, it still pops out of place from when I got restrained and they broke it and it never healed. Like, so I'm like actively trying to sue them, and so I was trying to, like, get my records for that and get my records of, like, proof. Like, I needed proof, basically, and so, but they didn't give me nothing. They didn't even give me my records. I'm gonna go back up there again. I'm just gonna cause a scene, and if they call the cops, I've already talked about it with my dad, and my dad said, if they call the cops, it's whatever, I'll just come and get you. I'll bail you out at that point. Like,
yeah.
So, yeah.
See, stuff like that, in my opinion, should be available through Freedom of Information. That should all be available. All of that information, even if it was from a private school. If it has to do, if the school was known for abuse, then there should be complete transparency with that shit, in my opinion. Okay, interesting. Well, let me know if you find any updates on that. I'd be interested to know about that. What was the worst thing you saw there, and was there anything positive that you gained from your experience there?
I think the worst thing I ever saw was a bunch of girls tried to kill themselves, and I walked in on a girl hanging from the shower. And I also watched a girl jump out of a 2-story building to try to kill herself, and it was really traumatizing. Like, I just fell to the floor. Like, they told me that day, like, they brought me, the day I watched the girl jump out of the window, because I was the only one in the room that day. And I was, like, freaking out. I started screaming her name, and, like, once she was out the window, I just dropped to the floor. I thought she was dead. And so I dropped to the floor, and I just started crying, and a bunch of the staff finally came in after she had already jumped out the window. I'd been screaming her name. She had been standing there for, like, 10 minutes, and she finally did it. And I remember the next day, like, Thane brought me, like, candy and, like, McDonald's, and I was super happy. But then I was like, why the fuck am I getting this shit? And then, because they had labeled me a bad kid, so I was, like, really confused on why I was getting it. And basically, they were like, that was the most heartbreaking thing we've ever seen. We feel really bad that you had to witness that. Da, 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 da. You're super young. And I was like, well, you guys don't care that I witnessed a bunch of other shit. And then they took away my McDonald's. And so then I just went back to the group, and it was like, whatever. But the girl wasn't dead. She ended up living. She didn't fall hard enough. And the other girl that I found in the shower, she also ended up living, thankfully. And I would say I gained a lot of friendships. I'm friends with a lot of the girls there still. I talk to some of the guys here and there to see how they're doing. And I mean, I would say that, like, it definitely made me, like, I never hide that, like, I went to a school like that. I always tell people, because, like, at the end of the day, like, who I am today was shaped out of my childhood. And, like, I may not have been the best mother to my son, but my daughter, I'm like, definitely, like, my mom and, like, everything I went through, and the drugs, like, even just now, like, getting sober, like, all of that, like, it's been because of everything I went through there. And, like, I'm not gonna let them, what they told me when I left was that I would be a drug addict. I'd be, like, I would get my kids taken away from me because they didn't teach you nothing. They didn't even teach us sex ed. So I didn't know nothing. And so basically, like, all this stuff was happening, and they told me that I would be a high school dropout. So everything I did was more to prove them wrong more than anything. And, like, I ended up graduating high school, and I emailed them the day I graduated high school. I said, guess what? I just graduated high school. And I sent them a picture of my diploma. And then when I got sober, I had posted, that's when I had posted on my Facebook about, I tagged them in and everything. They got that post removed off of Instagram somehow, but they reported it, and so it got taken down off of Instagram, but not Facebook. It's still up on my Facebook, and I basically called them out and was like, I was told that I would be a drug addict. I was told that I would just be, like, basically, like, you know, I would kill myself eventually, da 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 da. And yeah, so I think a lot of the shit I do now and what I was doing to, like, save myself, like, that was definitely what I learned. Like, I gotta prove these people wrong.
Okay. What about grooming from the staff? Was there, you already labeled some, but, like, what kinds of grooming did you witness?
Wait, what is grooming?
Like either sexual grooming or, like, fucking just, like, grooming them to, like, be, like, okay, so, like, grooming is, like, I guess, like, giving, a way to describe it is like giving people something. Like, when they brought you McDonald's, that could be viewed as grooming because they're bringing you something and trying to, like, sort of, like, suck up to you in a way, or, like, gain your approval, or
Oh, okay, I know what you mean. Okay, I would say towards the end, I was older at that point, so, like, between 16 and 17, they wanted me to start snitching. And I would say that, like, I already knew about snitching from, like, when I was a kid, because I was hanging out with, like, gang members and shit. So I basically told them, snitches get stitches. I ain't telling y'all shit, basically. And they would start bringing me stuff so that I would tell them what was going on between who and what and who's doing what. And I took all of it, and then I would lie to them and say what was happening, and then, or I would tell them like this was happening, but like it wasn't what they wanted to hear, but like it was something still. And
Yeah.
so basically, that's what it. Yeah, I would say that, and they would get a lot of the guys to like, um, they would. I think they were bringing the guys stuff because a lot of the guys were aggressive, and I think they were like bringing them stuff and telling them basically that like to calm down because like some of the guys ended up acting like way different from like when they first got there to then. So I think they were doing stuff to the guys, and then yeah, like I said, the favoritism. They did a lot of favoritism. I don't know if that would count, but I think but yeah.
Okay. If you could go back in a time machine and not go through that experience, either of the schools, would you, and why? Knowing what you know now,
Would I go still?
would you like if you could go back in a time machine and like not go through those two schools and that experience, knowing what you know now, would you do it and why?
Yes, absolutely. I would because I want to. Actually, I don't think I would. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I would rather go back than live with my mom. My mom was so horrible that, like, being there, even though all that shit happened to me and everything, it still was better than being with my mom. And so I would say I would still go back there if it was between that and living with my mom. But I would say if there was an option where my dad got custody of me and none of that happened, then I wouldn't go back.
Okay. Sorry. How has life been after the program? And like, what affects you to this day the most? And what do you struggle with the most? And how do you deal with it now?
I would say in the beginning, I was just trying to do anything I could to forget it. I would say it affected my life to where like I was doing everything I could to numb myself, even to the point where like I was doing so much that I was overdosing, and it was really bad. I would say now it shaped me because I wouldn't ever put my child into a school like that. But I would say maybe if I didn't go there and I didn't know what those schools were about, and I ended up having like a kid that was like bad and stuff. Like I guess I would say like I don't know what a bad kid is, because like there's bad kids, but then there's also like they don't have a dad, or like there's stuff going on at home, and that's what it was with me. Like I was a bad kid because of stuff that was going on at home, and so basically I would never send my kid to none of those places. I don't care how bad my kid is. I'll figure out how to handle it. And I would say that like it definitely shaped me. Like a lot of the things that like I was not going to graduate high school. That was not on my plans. But I graduated high school to prove them wrong. Not that a high school diploma really matters, but I did it, and just a lot of the things that happened to me there also happened to me when I got out, and that's where like they didn't teach me, like I didn't know that outside of the school predators existed. Even though my mom was trafficking me, I was so used to it at that point that I thought it was normal. So it really kind of messed me up there, and I would say what I struggle with now, I have really really bad PTSD, and like for some reason, every year since I've gotten out, around this time of year, from like August to like January or February, I get really bad flashbacks and panic attacks. And it's only around this time of the year. And I think it's because that's when like everything was heightened. Like that's basically around the time I got sent away and all this stuff. And I'm grateful that my fiance knows how to handle it now. He didn't at first, but he does now. He's very good with how he handles me when I'm in that type of mindset. But yeah, I'd say that's probably what I struggle with most is the PTSD and the depression.
Okay. Is it your belief that these schools could or even or should or even could be fully regulated, or is it your belief that they should all just be shut down?
I think they should all be shut down. I think if they were going to stay open, it definitely would need to be regulated. But I personally would like to see them all get shut down because at the end of the day, like a lot of the kids that do go there, like are either from court or like the state sends them or like whatever. And like it's really sad. But like also at the end of the day, like there's juvie for that. And like I think juvie should get shut down too. But nobody would hear that side. I just think that like a lot of these places, like it's really damaging. It's really damaging, and I don't think anybody until you go through it understands how damaging it is.
Agreed with that. Okay, is there anything else you want people to know about your story, or maybe anything you would tell a parent that is thinking about sending their kids to a program like this?
Oh, that's crazy because I saw on Facebook the other day this mom. No, I was in outpatient rehab, and this mom was talking about how she wants to send her kid to one of those places. And I piped in real quick and I said, listen, I understand your kid might be a lot, but I'm just going to tell you, I went to one of those places. I was there from 13 to 17. I went to one of those places. And I just openly told her everything that happened to me. And she started crying. And she was like, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, I would never do that to my kid. I told her that there was this place in San Diego where we're at that's actually really good that I went to when I was put after I punched that kid in the face. They sent me to like a 2-week like program to like figure out my anger issues basically, and they were actually really nice. The food was really good, and like they actually listened to me and understood me, and like they listened to me tell them what my mom had done to me. And so I told her about that place. I said, if anything, like this place is really good. I went there. It's only 2 weeks, and you can take your kid when you want to take your kid if you feel like it's not the right fit. And she told me thank you. And I would say, like, my story, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I would tell I've never even told everything that's happened there. I think I would just tell the parents, just don't send your kids there. If they ask why, I would tell them why. And then I would recommend something else because I did do classes for child development after I got out. After I graduated high school, I went to community to try and do psychology. And so I did a lot of childhood development. And I was telling, I've had mothers like in AA because I go to AA a lot, and a lot of them are like, I don't know what to do with my kid. They're part of the reason why I drink, and I just look at them like, you can't blame your kid on why you drink. Like that's really fucked up, basically. And she was like, no, you don't understand. You were just a kid. I said, I may be young, but I have kids, and like I understand that, but at the same time, like I don't know. I guess I see it from a different point of view now because of everything I went through. I could never see a kid as a bad kid, ever.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Is there anything more you want to add to your story?
If the program watches this, I do want to add this because I want them to watch it. If they're watching, I just want them to know that I'm going to get money from them and I'm going to shut them down. They're going to get shut down. That's all I have to say on that.
All right, amen to that. If you ever want to do a part 2, just let me know. If you forget anything or whatnot. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching so far in the video. If you've watched this far, then please like the video. Make sure you share it and leave a comment down below. And make sure you hit the notification bell. And thank you guys for all of your support. And wherever you are, have a good night or a good morning, wherever you guys are. And with that, see you next time.